Hello and welcome back everyone to the video series dedicated show on MTV that signs all of its legal documents in hot sauce. That's right, we're talking about The Challenge Season 37, Spies, Lies, and Allies, Episode 7, and we've waited a week to see the ending to this fight, to see the Hall Brawl, to see Fessy be DQ'd, so let's not waste any time jumping into where last episode left off, and that was in the middle of this fight where Fessy pushes Josh's face, and once that face push happens, that's when Josh takes things over 9,000. Josh gets up on the couch, is jumping up and down on it, saying that Fessy is being DQ'd. He is getting out of his house. He's not going to see another final. Then he gets in front of everybody and says, hey, everybody, the house vote should be Fessy and Esther, but quickly recants that. And then Casey shows up to this fight finally, and that's when Josh gets in her face and says, hey, you have to choose me or him. Choose right now, giving her an ultimatum for this friendship. And then Amanda says that's enough at some point during this fight, and Josh yells even louder, breaking glasses. I thought we were almost done with this fight at the end of last episode, but we were just getting started. And in the middle of this pandemonium, Esther apologizes to Amber about throwing the drink in her face. They hug it out, but as the dust is settling over this fight and everybody is calming down, Amanda calls out Tori and Corey for instigating the fight, but then Corey gets very defensive, saying that it doesn't matter if he instigates the fight. They are two grown men who shouldn't let their emotions get the best of them over an argument that started about food, which I'll let that sink in. Priscilla and Ed console Amber, where then Berna is eating her pizza and drinking some haterade because she is not feeling Amber whatsoever. In this episode, we're going to get more of that as the episode progresses. Then as the night wraps up, we have Josh and Fessy hug things out, apologize to each other, and Josh gets emotional because he knows that Fessy is going to be leaving this game. He's going to get DQ'd for putting his hands on Josh, and for all of this to blow up over a silly argument, I think at that moment it was really starting to hit Josh that things were taken too far, and it really screwed up not only Fessy's game, but also it could possibly ruin his game. We move on to the next morning where Emmy is talking in a room with CT, Tori, Devin, and I think Ed as well is also in the room. And Emmy is talking about how she wants to stay long enough in this game to be partnered up with CT, Uncle CT, and if she gets an opportunity to go down to the elimination and win, that she was going to steal CT. And that's when Devin's like, hey, do we want to make this official? Do you want to be in this alliance? And they grab the hot sauce. Emmy signs her name on the hot sauce dotted line, and now she is part of an alliance with Devin, CT, Tori, and possibly Ed. Maybe it's part of the Vet Alliance, maybe it's part of a subcategory in the Vet Alliance where it's just their own personal alliance. Now this is very interesting because 5 minutes earlier to their conversation, Emmy had a conversation with Berna about how she wasn't going to steal CT away from her. Really, it was Berna saying, hey, don't pick Uncle CT, and Emmy just goes, okay, yeah, sure. I won't steal him. I mean, come on now. Of course she's gonna steal him. Later on that morning, Josh and Fessy have another conversation. They apologize some more. They talk about their insecurities, where Josh says that it still bothers him that he hasn't made it to a final yet, and Fessy is talking about how he is frustrated that he's never won anything. He's in an alliance with Josh and Casey, who have both won Big Brother, and now he's in this game, and he just can't seem to find his footing to make it to the next level to get that win in the challenge. But their talk comes a little too late because TJ does make a house call. He does gather everyone out into the backyard, and he gives Esther and Josh a warning and then tells Fessy to hit the road. He's being DQ'd for putting his hands on somebody, so guess what? You're out of here. Fessy does a goodbye tour around the house while he's packing up his stuff, and he leaves the game. We get a quick meeting of the vets where they're like, hey, should we throw in Josh, or is he gonna just get a pass for all of this because he did start all this and get Fessy sent home? But to me, it's confusing why they would have this conversation, because with Fessy leaving, that means it's going to be a women's only elimination, so even sending in Josh or thinking about sending in Josh makes no difference because it's only going to be women who are going to be facing off against each other. So if Josh was the house vote, it would be Ashley who's going to be sent into the elimination and fighting for her shot to stay in the game, rather than Josh being hurt by this decision at all. To me, I don't understand why we have this scene in here. Maybe it's the editors trying to get us to be like, oh, they're considering throwing in vets, so the game is finally kicking off. But I'll say it again, I'll believe it when I see it. We head on to the nomination ceremony where we have Tori and Corey kicking things off, apologizing for their part in the fight and getting Fessy DQ'd from the season. Both Amanda and Devin are not buying it. And the vets game at this moment seems like we're gonna target the rookies, but we're gonna keep a list of all the transgressions of everybody who's done something in the game, to where when all the rookies are gone, we have a list and an order of hierarchy of who we want to send into the elimination first. So right now the list pretty much consists of Kyle for sabotaging Devin in that one daily, and then we have Corey and Tori for instigating this fight and getting Fessy sent home. We move on to the actual strategy talk, and Ed brings up, hey, last time Logan was all alone after his partner was medically disqualified. Now we have Esther by herself. Why don't we throw Esther in? And Devin seconds that motion. Esther isn't the most thrilled, but she knows that if she wants to have a shot of picking her next partner, she has to go in, so she's like reluctant. Everyone votes. I mean, it's Esther and Fessy that got the most votes. So Esther's going to be the one sent into the elimination. After the deliberation, we get a conversation between Emmanuel and Emmy, and Emmanuel says that this is the best for both of their games, because if Emmy stays in the rookie team, who's to say that the vets wouldn't target Emmanuel and Emmy to go into the elimination against each other, since they are friends, since they are tight. So it's best if she goes into the elimination, wins, gets CT as her partner, and then they could be sort of safe with their high-powered vets that they have as partners. Emmy is a little bit nervous. She wants something physical because she's not so good at puzzles, or she's not very confident in puzzles. We saw in her early elimination that Ed was the one that helmed the puzzle, so I can see where she's coming from. We move on to later on that night. Casey is talking with Berna, and Berna is just throwing Amber underneath the bus. She's like, why is she gonna get away scot-free? Instead of going into the elimination, she should be going in because she started the whole fight. And Casey's just standing there soaking this all in, going like, yeah, I totally understand it. I can't really trust Amber myself. And I understand that Berna and Esther are friends, but if your friend is going into the elimination, why are you campaigning so hard for Amber to be thrown into the elimination? I get that you want to see her out of this game. You want to see Esther take her out of this game. But also, Amber is 3-0 in eliminations, and it's kind of like throwing Esther into the lion's den. This is Esther's first ever elimination. You don't know what it could be, and you're wanting to throw Amber in? No thank you, Berna. A parallel conversation that's happening around the same time is between CT and Tori, and CT is telling Tori that he does not want to be in a partnership with Berna anymore, that she's doing too much. She has her hands in too many cookie jars, and he's not liking it because it could become a liability as the game progresses. So he's like, I don't want to be partnered up with her. We get it. We understand, MTV, that the CT and Emmy are going to be partnered up with each other at some point in this season. We've had 2 episodes where it's heavily implied that CT and Emmy like each other, that they want to be partnered up with each other. We don't need to see like 50 conversations of CT talking about how he doesn't want to be partnered up with Berna, he wants to be partnered up with Emmy, and vice versa. Like, we don't need all those conversations to know where this is heading. We move on to Casey and Emmanuel talking in the gym, and Casey wants to lock down the vote. She wants to know, like, hey, we're on the same page, let's send in Emmy. And Emmanuel is like, hey, I talked to her earlier and she wants to at least see the elimination before we send her in. And Casey's like, no, because then she has the possibility of chickening out. Let's just agree to say Emmy's name. The alarm goes off and everybody dons their gear to meet TJ at the lair. And while there, TJ asks for Esther to join him on the lair grounds. Then he turns the attention over to the agency of Emmanuel and Casey, asking, hey, who do you want to send into the elimination against Esther? And they both say Emmy. So we have Esther and Emmy in this week's elimination, which looks to be a Hall Brawl. From very far away, it looks exactly like a Hall Brawl, but TJ announces that it is Rage Cage, which is a Hall Brawl variant where it looks like a Hall Brawl, except instead of clear walls, it's made up of this cage or fence material. There's ropes on the floor, and then there's bells on either side, but what you have to do is once you get to the other side, you have to climb the fence and ring your bell. The person that can win best 2 out of 3 wins this elimination, stays in the game, gets to pick their new partner, and the other person is being sent home. Now, we saw the Hall Brawl a lot last season, and I think it came under a lot of criticism and a lot of scrutiny of how much we saw of the Hall Brawl last season, that I think they wanted to switch it up, and I'll be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of this variant. I mean, round 1 was weird in my opinion watching it, because First of all, the edit was very off because they kept on flashing in between shots of seeing the elimination early on where the two women were in the middle of the ring, and then they would quickly zoom out and they would be on the other side, and then they would zoom back in and they were back in the middle. It was just weird how this was all set up. And then in the first round, the strategy was completely off. Like one of the worst strategies in eliminations that I've seen, because you had Esther and Emmy in the middle at the same time, but it seemed as though that Esther kind of was playing defense early on, and so when Emmy was pushing and muscling her way to her bell, that's when Esther, instead of trying to like latch off and then run to her bell, she decided to then try to maneuver her way back and try to push Emmy to the middle. And it just was not working, to the point where Esther was already back at her entrance. Then she was on the ground holding Emmy's legs. It was just completely off. She was delaying the inevitable, which was Emmy breaking free, climbing the wall easily, and ringing her bell to take round one. Round two was even quicker than round one, where the women were running at each other. They knock into each other. They hold for a little bit. Then they let go. They're running to their bells. It looks like Esther actually gets to her bell first, whiffs when she goes and tries to ring it, and then Emmy runs up there and then rings her bell, winning 2 rounds to nothing. And when rewatching this elimination and recording on my computer screen for this review and recap, it took a total of 3 minutes. Take away all the commercials that were in the middle of it, and it was a 3-minute elimination segment. Esther takes one last shot at Amber, calling her fake before she is heading out to meet Fessy at the airport, and then we have Emmy getting to make the decision on who she wants to take as her partner. She decides she's going to take Uncle CT as her partner, meaning Berna and Huey are the new teams. So we have 2 new teams heading into episode 8. But before this episode ends, we have TJ asking Berna if she has anything to say, and Berna is like, I thought Emmy and I were very close, but now she takes CT, and I'm pretty sad about that. I got snaked by the whole house and somebody that I thought I could trust. Now I'm gonna be focused on trying to take Emmy out of this game. And then Emmy has a really great comeback, going like, okay, so in that elimination that you just watched, who did you go for? Who did you root for? And Berna was like, I rooted for Esther. And she's like, cool, case in point, I don't owe you nothing. And I really don't know what Berna expected, because we saw Emmy in episode 1 throw Michaela under the bus as soon as possible with that list. I don't think Emmy has any loyalty to anybody. Maybe she has loyalty to Emmanuel, but I think if it benefited her game, she would throw him under the bus at this point, because she is playing this game to survive, to win. And look at her, from episode 1 about the vets like talking about her, to now winning her second elimination and having CT as her partner, being in an alliance after signing her name in Hot Sauce. Pretty impressive. I think Emmy is going to be one to watch out for in this game. And that's where this episode ends. What do you think about this episode? Let me know that in the comment section below. Are you upset that Fessy was disqualified from the game? Let me know that in the comment section below. Are you upset to see Esther be eliminated from this game? What do you think about this Hall Brawl variance? And what do you think about the Emmy and CT pairing? Do you think that they're going to make a really strong duo in this game? Let me know anything and everything down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. While you're down there, hit that like and subscribe button. I'll be back really soon with more Challenge 37 content, more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.